welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The evening sky had faded to a dusky purple as I returned home earlier than usual. Barbara hadn't expected me back yet. Her meeting, or so she claimed, was supposed to run late. The house was unusually silent as I stepped in, the sort of hush that falls not from solitude but from secrets being whispered. I noticed her coat thrown carelessly over the sofa, an unusual sight since Barbara had always been meticulously neat, a habit I used to joke was her only flaw. But there were more pressing changes in Barbara these past few weeks. The vibrant red hair I had fallen in love with years ago was now a deep brunette, her wardrobe a sea of uncharacteristic black. My heart raced as I ascended the stairs, driven by a gut feeling that something was terribly wrong. The soft moans that escaped our bedroom confirmed my worst fears before I even pushed the door open. There she was, with him. He was a stark figure, all angles and shadows, with long black hair and lips painted a stark, jet black. His gothic appearance was a stark contrast to the man I knew myself to be, and yet, there was Barbara, the woman who vowed to be mine, lost in the arms of a man who was everything I was not. Barbara. The word tore from my throat before I could think. The room went deathly quiet. She turned, her eyes wide with shock and something else. Was it guilt? Fear? James, she started, but her words choked off as she saw the expression on my face. The man scrambled off the bed, grabbing for his clothes without a word, his exit swift and unceremonious. Barbara tried to explain, her words tumbling out in a frantic, jumbled mess, but I heard none of it. The betrayal sliced through me, sharp and cold. That night, under the harsh glow of the streetlights, as I drove away from what had once been our home, the seeds of revenge began to take root in my heart. Barbara had changed herself for him, and in doing so, had undone everything we had built together. The pain was raw, unbearable, and demanding of retribution. Over the next few days, I watched her from a distance. I noted the coffee shop where she met him, the nights she stayed out late under the guise of work. Each piece of information was a weapon, each sighting fuel to the fire burning inside me. I won't let her get away with this, I muttered to myself as I laid out the photos I had taken, the evidence of her infidelity clear and undeniable. The plan was simple yet devastating. I would expose her affair, not just to our circle but to everyone who mattered to her, her family, her friends, her colleagues. I would shatter the image she had so carefully curated, the image of a loyal, loving wife. And when she was most vulnerable, I would push for a divorce, ensuring she left with nothing but the remnants of her shattered reputation. As I prepared for the confrontation, a cold, hard determination settled over me. Barbara had made her choice, and now, she would face the consequences. I would make sure of it. The morning air was crisp, carrying a hint of winter's approach as I parked across from the coffee shop where Barbara and her gothic lover often met. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, the photographs lying beside me, a tangible proof of her betrayal. Today was the day I would confront her, and every second that ticked by pumped adrenaline through my veins. I didn't have to wait long. Soon, Barbara arrived, her dark hair cascading over a black trench coat that seemed alien on her. She paused at the door, scanning the street with an uneasy glance, perhaps an instinct that today was not like the others. As she disappeared inside, I took a deep breath and followed. The bell above the door announced my entry, and I saw her stiffen as she recognized the sound. She turned, her eyes widening as they met mine. There was no escaping now. "James, what are you?" "We need to talk," I interrupted, my voice low and controlled. I motioned towards the vacant corner of the shop. Reluctantly, she nodded and followed me, her steps hesitant. We sat across from each other, the small table between us filled with the remnants of her latte and his espresso. Before she could speak, I slid the photographs across the table. They fluttered like the final leaves of fall, settling in front of her, each one a testament to her infidelity. Barbara's face drained of color as she picked them up, her fingers trembling. James, I can explain, she started, her voice a whisper. Save it, I snapped. I've seen enough. I know about him, about everything. She set the photographs down, clasping her hands in her lap. It's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated? My laugh was bitter, sharp. You didn't think it would be complicated when you decided to cheat. When you threw away everything we had for him. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I was past caring. I thought we were happy, Barbara. I thought we were building a life together. And all this time, you were lying to me, deceiving me. How could you? I was lost, James. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Her voice broke, but the sight of her crying, once something that would have softened me, now fueled my anger. I trusted you, I said, my voice rising despite my attempt to control it. And you betrayed me. People around us began to take notice, their eyes darting between us, drawn by the spectacle. Barbara glanced around, her cheeks flushed with shame. This isn't the place, she murmured. No, the place was our home, where I caught you. I shot back, my control slipping. But you made it public when you decided to disgrace that home. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm filing for divorce, Barbara. And everyone will know why. You'll leave with nothing. Her face crumpled, and she reached out, grabbing my arm. Please, James, let's talk about this. I shook off her touch, my gaze cold. There's nothing left to discuss. Turning on my heel, I left her there, surrounded by the murmurs of onlookers, her sobs lost in the frothy noises of the coffee machine. As I stepped back into the chill of the morning, the weight of my decision bore down on me. But there was no turning back now. The wheels of retribution were in motion, and there was no stopping them. The relentless beat of the rain against my car window mirrored the turmoil in my heart as I drove towards Barbara's office. My grip on the steering wheel was tight, my knuckles white. In the passenger seat, a folder bulged with printed emails and photos, the ammunition for today's battle. As I parked, the storm seemed to crescendo, as if underscoring the drama about to unfold. I waited, watching as Barbara's co-workers dashed through the downpour, seeking refuge in the modern glass building that housed the marketing firm where she worked. Today, her double life would be unveiled. The lobby was sleek and impersonal, filled with the hum of subdued conversations and the click of heels on polished stone. I approached the receptionist, a young woman with sharp glasses and a questioning look. I need to see Barbara Miller, I stated, my voice betraying none of the storm inside me. Do you have an appointment? She asked, fingers poised over her keyboard. No, but tell her it's urgent, I said, leaning in slightly. She'll want to see me. The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. Moments later, I saw Barbara emerge from the elevator. Her face was composed, but her eyes flashed with apprehension as she saw me. James, what are you doing here? She hissed, glancing around nervously. We need to talk. Now, I said, steering her towards a small conference room off to the side of the lobby. Once inside, I wasted no time. I flung the folder open on the conference table, scattering its contents so they covered the glossy surface. Emails detailing her rendezvous, photos of her and her lover, receipts for gifts I never received, every piece a testament to her deception. Barbara's face paled as she looked at the documents. James, please, you don't have to do this. Not here. Why not? I challenged, my voice rising. Why not here, where you've been lying to everyone about who you really are? You're going to ruin me, she pleaded, her composure breaking as tears filled her eyes. You ruined us. I shot back, slamming my palm on the table. The sound echoed in the small room. Before she could respond, the door swung open. A tall man in a tailored suit entered, surprise etching his features at the scene before him. "Is everything okay here?" he asked, his tone cautious. I turned to him, my anger finding a new target. "Are you her boss?" "Yes, I am," he replied, his brows knitting together. I tossed one of the emails towards him. "Then you should know who you've really hired. Take a good look at what your perfect employee has been doing." Barbara made a move to intercept, but it was too late. Her boss picked up the email, his eyes scanning the contents quickly. A shadow of disgust flickered across his face as he read. "This is a personal matter," Barbara started, but her boss cut her off. "Using company time for personal engagements is not purely personal. We'll have to discuss this, Barbara." "In my office, now," he said sternly. As they left the room, Barbara cast a look back at me, a mix of anger and despair. I watched her go, feeling a hollow victory. The first part of my plan had unfolded, her professional facade cracked. But there was no joy in it, only the bitter taste of retribution. As I left the building, the rain had stopped, but the clouds hung heavy, a mirror to my heart. The storm inside me raged on, with no end in sight. The evening was cool and quiet, the silence deepening as darkness settled over the city. I sat in my car, parked a block away from the bar where I knew Barbara and her gothic lover were meeting tonight. It was to be their farewell, a secret celebration before she moved in with him, unaware that I had intercepted the message meant for her eyes only. Tonight, my plan would reach its ruthless conclusion. Over the past weeks, I had meticulously set the stage for Barbara's ultimate downfall, ensuring her separation from everything and everyone she held dear. But this final act would sever the last tie she had left, her lover. As they stepped out of the bar, laughter spilling into the night, I followed at a distance. They walked hand in hand, completely absorbed in each other, oblivious to the storm that was about to break over them. I had chosen the location carefully, a secluded alley they would pass through on their way home. The darkness was my ally, and as I approached, I could feel my heart pounding with a cocktail of fury and adrenaline. Just as they entered the alley, I stepped out from the shadows, my voice cold and hard as the steel of the gun I now held. "Barbara." She turned, her eyes wide with shock, then fear, as they fell on the gun. Beside her, the man froze, his face going pale. "James, what are you doing?" Barbara's voice trembled, her body visibly shaking. "This ends tonight," I said, the gun unwavering in my hand. "No, James, please, don't do this," she pleaded, stepping forward. "We can talk about this." "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied, my voice steady. "You betrayed me, Barbara. You ruined everything we had." "And for what?" "For him." The man beside her stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "Look, man, we didn't mean to." "Shut up." I cut him off, shifting the gun slightly to point at him, enjoying the fear that flickered across his face. "James, think about what you're doing. You don't want to be a killer," Barbara cried, her eyes darting between the gun and my face. "I'm not going to kill you," I said slowly, a cruel smile playing on my lips. "No, I want you to live. Live with nothing." With a swift motion, I aimed the gun and fired. The bullet shattered the street lamp above us, plunging the alley into darkness. In the confusion, I stepped forward, grabbing the man's arm and twisting it behind his back. His scream echoed off the walls as I pushed him to the ground. "Remember this pain," I hissed in his ear. "And remember why you feel it." I released him, stepping back as Barbara knelt beside him, sobbing. I turned to her, my voice a harsh whisper. "Go on, live with him. But know this, I will make sure everyone knows the truth about you both. You'll be left with nothing but each other, if you can even stand the sight of each other after tonight." Leaving them in the darkness, I walked away, the sound of Barbara's cries echoing behind me. My revenge was complete, not through death but through destruction. They were broken, just as I was, their futures as dark as the alley they lay in. As I disappeared into the night, the weight of what I had done began to settle in. There was no joy in this vengeance, only the bitter satisfaction of justice served in the coldest form.